Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast,
a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano Alvarez here with Brent LaBrada and a special guest. But before we get into that, of course, we want to give a shout out and show some love to loyal listeners who have been behind us the whole time. This, I want to say, marks year 5. Season 4 is year 5 of the Dog Trainers Podcast. And I feel like we don't say it enough. Maybe there is no saying it enough. We appreciate you guys very much. Thank you guys so much for being with us. And with that being said, let's get into today's episode. Today, we are going to be talking with Jacob Morgan from Yorkshire Canine Academy, one of the fastest growing dog training brands on social media. They've helped thousands of dogs and built a strong online community by sharing their training methods, success stories, and insights. And in this episode, we're going to be diving into how they got started, the role that social media has played in their success, and what it really takes to grow a dog training business online. Whether you're a trainer looking to build your brand or a dog owner wanting to learn more, there's a ton of value in this convo, and let's jump in. I want to kick it right over to Brent. Over to you, man.
What's up, guys? You know what? I'm just going to kick it right over to Jacob. How you been, man?
Yeah, pretty good. Had a good week since I spoke to you boys last.
I know. So just a little intel for everybody listening. This is our third attempt to try and record this episode, right? And not only were we on different time zones, fate came in and started just throwing and testing our friendships, and we had to be patient with each other and check in on each other regularly. What was it that was happening? You were having power outages?
There was all sorts. There was storms. There was power outages. There was technical difficulties with the software we're using. All sorts was going on.
All sorts.
It was like COVID 2.0. It's crazy. It's like a pandemic.
But you know what, guys? We persevered and we hustled and we got him here for you guys today. So again, thank you, Jacob, for joining us again and being so persistent with us. I mean, we can't wait to add some value to our listeners. So, Jacob, if you don't mind, we kind of like to start all of our new guests with the origin story, right? Like before you were Batman, talk about young Bruce Wayne. Let's talk about how you got here on this interview, how you became Yorkshire Canine Academy, how you got into dog training. Just tell us as far back as you feel comfortable going. Yeah, because I know for sure I'd like to know. So, wherever you like.
I'm come from a sporting background, so I played rugby for most of my life and then moved up north to sign for a team here in the north of England called the Leeds Rhinos when I was 18 years old. And I did my studies in law alongside that. At this point, I'd left home and left the family dogs at home. And I got to my postgraduate degree, which I was studying part-time as well as playing part-time professional rugby. And I decided to get a dog. I was like, okay, I've been up here 6-7 years now. Me and my girlfriend at the time, we were like, hey, let's get a dog. We can manage things between us. Thinking, young, sporty couple. Things will be a breeze. And like a lot of people, it took us from left to field and fast forward a couple of months, we are mimicking everything we see on YouTube, and we've got this problem dog that's starting to become reactive towards other dogs. Now, my exposure to dogs up until that point was obviously our family dogs. They're a little bit older. We remember them with the rose tint glasses, and we're like, we don't realize maybe what training went into them, maybe the commitment too. I was, I would say, 23 or something like that. So a young man thinking he probably a little bit too big for his boots, thinking, he can do anything at the time. Anyway, I get this dog and I still got him to this day. Ranger, he's my boy. I see him as a co-founder of this place. He rides shotgun in the van with me every morning. So we're going good. We got going strong. He's a solid stooge dog in work. That's where my journey in dogs started. I am very thankful for the time I spent playing sport. It showed me the capacity to work well as a teammate, as a leader in some instances, as well as it did drive I do have a competitive nature, and I think that's kind of where it stems from. A lot of what I do comes from a competition to, be one of the best at what we do. And that was definitely a driving force. And competing in PSA and competing like as a business, I guess we could call it, kind of fulfilled that void that I probably had when I left rugby. At one point I played at quite a high level, and there was high stakes in certain instances, and then once that's taken away from you, replacing that void, it also helps with the talking and the banter and things like that.
Can we ask what did something end your rugby career?
Yeah, it just kind of like aged out. It just wasn't good enough to go any further. That's pretty much it. I just got to a little bit of a crossroads. I'm seeing my friends pursue careers beyond probably their capacity. They're then putting other careers on the back burner. It's a very short-lived career. You get one injury, one ACL, and if you've invested everything, just like any sport, into that, unless you've got something lined up afterwards in maybe media, then you gotta be looking after yourself in that sense. So I did get to a bit of a crossroads in that, hey, I'd played at the highest level I think I was going to play at, and I'd reached my potential. Now I need to move on and think about like what happens next. And so then I started focusing towards my studies a little bit, and then dog training so happened to come along. It was a right curveball.
So you were in school to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you were deep into that schooling, and you get a dog.
Mm-hmm.
When did the thought of like, all right, I'm going to make the shift. Like I'm going to leave all these things that I've been prepping for years, and I want to do the dog thing. Like do you remember those moments?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy my studies. And it was something that I felt compelled into with pressure from family. But when I say that, I just want to reiterate that it wasn't ill-meaning pressure. It was just my parents wanted me to, and my family wanted me to meet my academic capacity. And so it was always ever going to be veterinarian or barrister. And so I wanted to be a criminal barrister. That's where I was pursuing. And then when you realize it's not all like you see on TV, and you're locking up criminals and you're stepping in front of the court and putting together compelling cases, that's just a fraction of what you may be asked to do. And in fact, it's long drawn out nights, is unsociable hours. It is probably putting your closest friends and family as a second priority. And then you go ahead and become a business owner and you do all that stuff anyway. So yeah, I got to that point, and then I was like, I'm not enjoying this. I was training my dog on the side that was developing these behavioral issues and working through them. And I was like, this is amazing. And realized people are making a career out of that. I was helped with a trainer here that's local to Leeds. And then he mentored me for a while. And then I decided to, I actually applied to the military in the veterinary corps.
What? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got to the third interview of that, and I was ready for then the dilemma. And I was then approached by the guy I was working with my dog at the time, and he said, hey, how about you come and do the job and not get shot at? And I went, yeah. So I went and worked for him as like a helping hand for a few years, starting on minimum wage, just getting through and getting to know dogs. And I think there's a little bit of resentment on his behalf when I left and started this place as a competitor, which, fair enough, whatever. But I will always have gratitude for that experience, especially cycling through and getting to meet and have my hands on as many dogs as I did. And I'm talking like 5, 10, 15 dogs a day, just like cycling through them, quick lunch break, back into it. So like that sort of experience, which, for people that are looking for mentorship at the moment is really hard to get hold of. So that was kind of how my first 3 years looked. And then alongside that, I was training ranger, and then hit another crossroads in the methods they were heavily gauged on the negative reinforcement side of things. And I wanted to explore other avenues. And how we're training, utilizing more food and play and things. I guess we could say that the methods are a little bit more on the compulsive side. And so, yeah, I wanted to just broaden my spectrum in what I had under my dog training repertoire. So I had a conversation there. Honestly, it went down like a bit of a lead balloon in terms of it was kind of like a my way or highway conversation. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go my own way then, and then had a little bit of a short sabbatical of about 6 months, and then started the Yorkshire Canine Academy almost 3 years ago, like tomorrow, 4 years ago tomorrow, like March 1st, I think we registered.
So that sabbatical for 6 months, what did you learn? What did you learn? Like who did you study?
It was because of prior to that, it was very much like an echo chamber of like, this is how we work. This is how we do things. This is this is it. It was black and white. And if I were ever to mention listening to other resources, like that was shut down really, really quickly. And I think we see that in dog training quite a lot, and I think is a bit of a toxic trait of the industry to a degree, the my way or highway mindset. And it never really sat right with me because of by then I'd got a second dog that wasn't as robust genetically as my first dog, and so she needed a little bit more work through motivation to begin with, and what worked on the first dog didn't work on the second dog as well, because she was a lot more sensitive and just couldn't tolerate like the volume of negative reinforcement, I guess. So I started playing around with existential feeding, box feeding, learning clicker, counter conditioning, pressing her into behaviors, and then, like almost like NAPO style training. And I saw, a massive change in her. And that was a little bit of my light bulb moment where I was like, okay, I need to start looking at the other things. So I was like secretly consuming the canine paradigm. I was looking at a lot of Michael Ellis's stuff, very like food-based, very reward-based, with overlay of pressure. And then I was like, had to have the conversation. It was one of the places where like food was never allowed. You're never allowed to train a dog with food, right? We're all familiar with these places.
Very old school healer style.
Yeah, correct. And, it wasn't working for every dog. It was working for the tough dogs. It was working for the more stable dogs. And they were just, taking it and getting better. Fine. But it wasn't working for everyone. And so, I needed to step away. I was worried that was going to be me, and I was worried that my knowledge was going to be limited. So stepped away. In that period of 6 months, I did as much learning as I could, and I was like, right, I need a break because I actually don't know as much as I think I know. Now I'm outside of this cult.
I hear you. I get it.
Yeah. So, but then there was a point where I was like, okay, I need income now. So we started this. And then my early training here was mirrored kind of what I used to do quite a lot. And then it started graduating and fading away from that. And now we're a little bit more heavy on the food and play.
Love that growth.
That's awesome, dude. Let me ask you a couple questions about the sabbatical, like the structure of it. This sounds really mundane, but the reason I'm about to ask these is because I think taking time like that, taking sabbaticals is so important. We've talked about this before with other guests. Not enough dog trainers and maybe not enough professionals in any field do it. So what I wanted to ask was, it was 6 months total. How long, roughly, a few days, a week, did it take for you to feel like you were on sabbatical and not on this time crunch in order to let yourself be creative?
It was difficult because there was this overbearing, ticking clock behind me at any one point in terms of like, hey, you have to get back to work. I appreciate that you need to upskill yourself. You need to learn more. You need to look outside of this box, but you've got a mortgage and you've got bills to pay. Mm-hmm. So I felt a little bit more pressure on the back end of that. Something that I did really learn to be good at whilst training elsewhere was, even when the shoe didn't fit, you get good at talking about how we can maybe make the shoe fit. And so like if you have a curriculum you have to follow, right? Then you have no choice but to be a better teacher, because you can't rely on changing methods. So I got good at talking really, really quickly. And so my strongest skill set at that point anyway was the ability, I think, to communicate with the clients, which I think is at a carry on over on social media. And I want to make a couple of points on that. But in terms of like upskilling myself and where things were going, yeah, like I said, I had to just get to the point where I was like, right, we gotta start bringing the money in. I spent every penny I had, and I probably got to the point where there was like 100 quid in my bank, and was like, right, I need to go find some clients. And so I just reached out to everyone I possibly knew that had a dog, sent them my new Instagram page, which is Yorkshire Canine Academy's page now, 5 followers, one of which my mum, and was just like, hey, I'm training dogs. I've started my own thing. And there was a couple of story highlights on the page of me like fucking around with my personal dogs. And And yeah, we started from there. We started again from scratch, which is really daunting, but it's something I'll always look back on and go like, I'm so grateful I did that.
Now that you're in a different position financially, do you plan on taking further sabbatical? Do you find it easier or less daunting?
Yeah, for sure. We're in a fortunate position at the moment where we can do that we can do learning alongside work. So we spoke about the bang for the buck, and with the programs in which we're offering, it means we've got a little bit more freedom. So, I can be having certain conversations with people like yourselves, and like you've had conversations with people like Michael Ellis and other well-established dog trainers. And you just get this really nice opportunity to learn from others within conversations, whether it's for social media or otherwise. So I always plan my week out a little bit, and part of that goes to education.
Beautiful. It's funny. It's, we get to mingle with a lot of our guests at some point in person. And there's about, most of them, we've all sat down at some point behind a beer and been like, can you imagine everything that we're doing right now? This trip, this backyard, this house, this car we're in, this whatever. It's from the dogs. You know what I mean? Isn't that a crazy thing to just be like, we followed our passion. We busted our ass, and we have dogs to thank for it, So it's always a really cool moment of gratitude to just be like, oh, that's pretty freaking cool, man. I think that's always one thing we have in common and why we're all kinfolk in a way. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's a huge jump from our original life stories. Like, how many people when they were little kids are like, you know what I want to be when I grow up? A dog trainer, right? Like, maybe there's a small percentage of people, but we all probably wanted to be something very, very different, and life just turned things in a way. And at some point, we made this choice. We literally had to make this choice. I'm either going to do the thing I planned, or I'm going to do something I'm passionate about and double down on myself and my skills. And I think that's really, really freaking cool, man. I get inspired about that every single time I hear stories like.
I had my first fan mail recently from a 9-year-old girl.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Tell us about that.
From she's somewhere in England with her mum, and she's consumed a lot of our content, and she's like a super YCA fan, and she says she wants to be a dog trainer, and she sent me a picture of her dog, and she says she wants him to be like my dog Stark. And I had to remove myself from the office because I was like tearing up. I was like, I'm not crying in front of my staff. This is insane. But there are kids out there that do want to be dog trainers, which is super cool.
Oh, that's awesome. There's a quote that I like. It's a longer quote, but one of the lines in the quote, they said, "Light, if you allow your light to shine, you give other people the permission to do the same." And it's just like who were the goats in our day? Like, whose TV shows were we watching? Whose books were reading? I mean, I remember there was a show on PBS, the public broadcasting station, that I would watch that had to do with dogs, and then obviously Cesar Millan. And you pay homage to people like this because you're like, if it wasn't for the shows that you agreed to do or the content or the media that I saw you doing with dogs, I wouldn't have even the slightest idea that this was a career path or that this was a thing that was supposed to happen, right? So anyways, I just think it's cool. I think it's super cool.
I think, like you said, too, it's important we pay gratitude to the dogs as well, because there are dogs with issues and have been through shit and have not got the best lifestyles that have allowed us to have this career, right? And what I mean by that is the dogs that were previously had issues before seeking out training. And my relationship with dogs now has been better than it probably has been throughout my whole career. It started off great. Then I probably overworked myself a little bit, and they become more work and a source of frustration. Then I think we all go through that same period of when, that point where we start hitting and we actually understand dogs a little bit more, and we're like, oh, you are actually a bit of an asshole of a dog. And we start having dogs who are like, oh, I actually don't like you. I thought I liked all dogs. And you're seeing more and more of them, and you're like, oh no, I did this because I love dogs. And then I come out of that recently where we've got a hell of a lot more time and the dividends are paying off, etc., etc. And now my relationship with the dogs and every dog I come across is like, I'm back to the old me that was just a lover of dogs. So I think it's important that we don't overwork ourselves and essentially ruin and forget about the essence in which we come into the career for.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's funny because I remember it was some of the dogs I grew up with were asshole dogs. I grew up with 4 cattle dogs, a Shiba Inu, these dogs were jerks. So I have this place in my heart for a dog who is an asshole. You know what I mean? So it's the more of a jerk you are, I kind of love you.
Yeah,
In a toxic way. It's
Yeah.
I like the mistreatment from you.
You might need therapy for that.
Yeah. I think yeah.
You heard it here first.
I'll talk to Hank about it. Yeah, cool guys. So all right, so you said 6 years ago you started Yorkshire.
4, mate. 4.
4 years ago. Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so you obviously weren't good at social media when you started, or were you?
No.
So,
I made a point to send some of my older content to my mentorship group a couple of weeks back to show them like how bad it was.
okay, so talk to us about this journey, because just as Mariano said in the opening of the podcast, that you're one of the fastest growing social media accounts right now, and it's quality content. And I shared this story in previous takes of this episode, but I remember sitting down with a bunch of dog trainer friends on several occasions, and they're like, "Oh, did you see that new Yorkshire? You see that new Yorkshire?" And they'd pull it up, and there'd be some clip, and I was like, and we're just cracking up. And a couple days later, same thing. "Hey, did you see that new post that the guy made?" For some reason, we never knew your name. We're just like, "Yorkshire, yeah, that Yorkshire guy, yeah." And so, yeah, we've been fans of you for a couple years now, and just your content is great. I really love the edutainment. I think you're pretty hilarious. You have good comedic timing. You're a good speaker. You're not bad to look at. Hey, ladies,
Thanks, mate.
ladies, just so you guys know. And so there's so many positives that come onto this content. So like, talk to us about like what was your agenda? Like where did you start? What was your goal? Like on the first, as you were building this brand?
So, yeah, like I said, when we first started, I was trying to get through to people. I was doing the old, why do we use a marker? Well, a marker is a salient sound to allow us to, and it was like, everyone's doing that. So like, what can we mix up? Now, the Instagram profile has existed for 4 years. Since we last spoke, I've gained like 20,000 followers. And that was like last week, something. We were on until September 23, we were on like 10,000 followers. So lot of that growth, the substantial amount of that growth has happened in like the last year or so. So there was essentially what I'm saying is there's like 3 years of trial and error of like what was working. And looking into other industries and understanding how social media can work for them is probably what inspired me to say like, oh, all right, how can't this work for dog training as well? There are coaches in different industries that are clearly putting so much effort into content. And I'm like, why? Just so they can have more authority and look like they got more followers? Well, looking deeper into it, they're actually being able to make more sales, more conversions, and more revenue and profit. And so that's probably what inspired me to actually shift my focus from where a lot of dog trainers are, which is train dogs and then fill the gaps with some marketing, to train slightly less dogs and dedicate a little bit more time to learn and understand and start actually learning what sort of content. Because I think a lot of people think you just kind of wing it and hopefully it sticks and then you keep trying, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into each one of our pieces of content in terms of like, what's the hook going to be? What's the message going to be? What's the CTA going to be? How long do we want to make it? You get a lot more efficient at that as time goes. It used to be a whiteboard and like mapping it out. Now I can just jot it down in my phone and go from there. But the day I actually shifted my mindset and was like, I need to reserve some time of my week to actually learn and make this a priority of my business because it's working for other people. And I had like a sense of FOMO, I think. And we all want to be good, like whether we like it or not, we all want more money. I was having a chat with my girlfriend and there's probably with everyone on the planet, whether we like to admit it or not, and there's probably like a status thing there as well. Humans, we've wanted to be follows for a millennia. And so there's probably, and I'm not saying this is the right way to think about it, but there's probably an underlier there of like a popularity contest to a degree. I've got to make sure I'm shifting that dial towards the right reasons though, and making sure it's paying for the food for those around me, myself, my partner, paying the mortgage and setting up a successful future for the ones I love. But yeah, anyway, went from a dog trainer that was training lots of dogs to a dog trainer that was training slightly less dogs and then creating a little bit more content. Once I realized then with that, we can start shifting kind of the focus on the business and start earning more for less work, ultimately, full transparency. That's where we decided to harness a little bit more of our resource and efforts. Anyone that starts thinking about making content seriously, you're going to have the same things. People are going to, even your closest of friends that like mean really well, people are going to be like, oh, I saw one of your silly videos last night.
What are your silly videos? Yeah.
You're making one of these other videos, or like they mean well. I think part of it is that people don't want to see their friend ridiculed. Like there's an element of putting yourself out there, and then I think you'll have those other type of friends that are like just don't want to see you do that great as well. Like we've all had them friends, identify them, get rid of them. So, don't be too worried about what your peers think, and remember the essence. Remember why you're doing it, and what's the purpose of it. And more so, like, educate yourself on actually how to do it. There's been a massive shift in dog training, right? There's been a huge shift in that a lot of it is getting pushed online, and there's this rat race in social media. But I can't remember who said it, you can swim with the water of change, or you can swim against it and drown yourself. And so whether we believe that this rat race on social media should exist for likes and follows, well, it's part and part of our industry now. And we can accept that and work with it, or we can die as a dinosaur and very quickly become irrelevant with no clients.
Yeah. Yeah. For those, do you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk at all?
I have done. I'm familiar. Not a lot. But yeah.
So he talks a lot about, he goes, a business in 10 years, if they're not on some type of social media, be it YouTube, podcast, something, like, their businesses are not going to be searchable. There's going to be no content or credibility developed. And so he's actually one of the early investors in Facebook, and he happened to like
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he happened to just predict a lot of social media trends, and because of that, he's kind of this guru, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that he talks about is, and tell me if you agree with this, he talks about, not everyone's built for the camera, right? I know me and Mariano, our faces are built for podcasts. Ain't that right, Mariano?
I disagree.
Yeah, I've got a voice for podcast.
You got a voice for him.
My God, do you?
Yeah, he does. He's like, welcome to... Yeah, so sexy. But what I was going to say is he pretty much says, not everyone might feel comfortable in front of a camera. Not everyone might have, I guess, the equivalent of stage presence on a camera. They may not have the gift of gab. They may not be. And so some people might be good writers, or some people might be great at designing infographics, or some people... But they need to create some type of content to provide value to their clients or their audience or whatever it is. If there was someone who isn't a good speaker, or someone who isn't good looking or charismatic on the camera, what advice do you have for them? Or sometimes the advice like, just get better at it.
So my sample group for me is 1-from-1. Mindset was, I've just got to get better at it. However, I've got one of my mentees recently. He's gained 28,000 followers in like 6 weeks. So he started at 0. I convinced him to start an Instagram page. His name's Simao. By all means, not a bad-looking guy, and he can also talk. But he's really developed a skill set in sharing opinions via text, overlaid on top of videos, that has really ramped his page up and the traffic that's come there. So very different content style to what I do, but also very successful in terms of like the rate in which he is growing. We've seen other people with making a lot of the stuff they do is like carousels, giving information there. It's going to be a little bit more difficult on something like YouTube. My argument against purely copywriting and not putting yourself on video is that dog training is a high skepticism market. We're all under the impression that, well, a lot of consumers are under the impression, because of us guys as dog trainers all fucking fighting and slagging each other off all the time, that someone's going to beat up your dog and steal all your money, right? And so putting a face to the person that's going to train your dog and you're going to work with, I think, is also super important anyway. So that would be one of my arguments to say, like, get over it, get better at it. Like I said, even 18 months ago, I would not allow anyone in the room with me as I was filming a piece of content. I was too embarrassed, I was too shy, and now I could do it down a busy town center and I wouldn't like blink an eyelid. That just comes with time and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and posting out 30 pieces of content and 29 of them bomb and one does okay and going like, okay, that was pretty good. There's something in that. Let's replicate it. Let's go again. But it's just one of those. It comes with actually doing it. And it is a little, I know, like as dog trainers, we say practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. But I think like in this example, this is a little bit of a,
practice makes progress. Yeah.
yeah, I think like just doing it and doing it for a little bit and just like getting better at speaking can really help.
Yeah. There's this interesting quote I heard where it's talking about, perfectionism is, what is it? It's a different quote that I'm quoting, but perfectionism is the something of done. What is it? It's the enemy,
of done.
It's
Yes.
the enemy of done, right?
Perfect is the enemy of done.
Yeah. And they were doing some research on entrepreneurs and people who, most entrepreneurs are not perfectionists, right? Because if that was the case, they'd get nothing done. But they're really good at saying, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And then moving on, and
Yes.
then assessing and reassessing things.
Yes.
And we just finished a series with Tyler Muto where he's a really big advocate, whether you're learning dog training, mostly it's in the art of dog training, recording yourself, self-review, seeing what you suck at, looking back at the tapes, like he's really into that. And that is kind of what getting good at social media sounds like it is, right? It's you're trying it out. Ah, fuck, that take sucked. I even had to put limits on myself where I'd be like on take 16 and I'd be like, all right. I was like, you only got 3 takes, buddy. You better freaking lock it in. And we're using one of those, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so little by little putting parameters on myself. So I'm forced to get better and better and better. But yeah, I think the bit of information I wanted to give is like learning how to be like, that's good enough. And then putting something out there and then seeing how it goes. And to your point, 29 out of 30 might suck and blow.
Mm-hmm.
And then that one, though, what was it about that one? Was it my performance? Was it the content? Was it the information? Was it the way it's edited? And now you can start extracting what characteristics you should replicate, right?
Yeah, social media gives us more than enough data to start fine-tuning what's working. We've got all the metrics there. How many followers, how many saves, how many shares, how many comments and likes is something. So different metrics will tell us a different thing that was valuable within that piece of content. So just creating 30 pieces, and this is what I say to anyone that asks me, just do 30. Just do 30. One of them will do better than the other 30. And that's Instagram telling you, hey, do more of that. And then you do 30 that look a little bit like that or like in that sort of, on that sort of theme. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's do another 30, and then what happens? Okay, I told a joke in this one. They like that. Okay, let's go again. And we're just running through it. If you sat there, you're scripting things, and I've got no problem with scripting things, but if you sat there, you're really beating yourself up over the script, and you're doing lots and lots of takes. Nah, just get it out there and get it done. That's so important for creating content, and also every step of whatever sales funnel you want to implement as well. Don't wait till your sales page is perfect. Just get it out there. Get the whole funnel up there. Then we can start tinkering. Then we can start fine-tuning. I don't care if your sales script's not ready. Just get it 60% of the way there, right? We're not talking about dogs now. We're not talking about ethical issues. We're just talking about us maybe making less money, and that's okay. But don't let one step of a sales funnel not being perfect kill your whole funnel. Or don't let one piece of content that you're just beating yourself up over kill your momentum to continually post. Just get it out there and like start getting comfortable with being rejected. Sometimes I put pieces of content out there and it just bombs. I put a piece of content out there and I'll be like, yeah, I'm the man. Look how many people shared that, bloody, bloody, blah. And then the next day it's like, yeah, 6 people like this. And I'm like, fuck, I'm not the man. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't need to be the man. Right? We don't need to be the man. And that's fine. And getting comfortable with that is a skill set in itself. So just get it out there. I love that quote.
It's interesting because I'm working on my social media. I think as a podcast, we're working on our social media game. And I have a little bit more time nowadays, and it is the I used to make arguments like I didn't have the time to do this, and then now I have nothing but time to do this. And what I realized is like, well, what am I going to teach? Like, I don't want to, I don't want to do the oversaturated stuff either. And I start realizing like I teach probably 6 classes a week. I have workshops for dog handling, for body language, for all these things for my staff, like literally for my core staff and my team. So that way everyone's, educated animal handlers. And now I'm just like, I'm just going to record all of that stuff and chop that stuff up and put that stuff out. And let's see how it goes. Cause it's stuff I'm doing every week anyways. But I still always find the hard time, like getting the editor. Like, okay, I got all this footage now. Who's going to edit it? So that's a common thing. Now that I have more time, I'm shooting more and I know how to edit, but I don't got that much time to edit. What struggles have you found, like getting it chopped up or getting it put out there? Or did you just kind of keep a workflow where you could do it yourself?
Okay, so I'll take you back one step, and I'm hoping This advice will help people out. Every dog trainer has the excuse, if they're a good dog trainer, that they don't have time. Good dog trainers at the moment are full, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so up until about a year ago, my going rate per hour was about the same as everyone else in my area. And I was working like 5 days a week, training a hell of a lot of dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And so a mentor of mine told me, if you're full, you're too cheap. You're too cheap. And you need to create some space in your calendar to start creating content. So he gave me a rule in that if you are full, you're too cheap. And if you're not full, you're not marketing hard enough. So for, like Ryanair, a budget airline that is based in Ireland, if they are ever full, they have made an error in pricing that plane. They always aim to be about 90% full, because if they were full, they might have been able to fill that plane 10 times. If they're half empty, they've charged too much. And it's the same for dog trainers. So if you have the excuse of, I'm full, I'm too busy, I don't have time, then my counter argument to refute that would be like, okay, then you really need to seriously think about putting up your prices. You will reduce conversion. It will free up more time in your calendar. You will get paid the same amount of money, so long as you're not too bold in your percentile increases. And then you will have now time for content. And so let's say you're making $1,000 a week by selling, I don't know, for easy mouse, $200 a day. That's what you're charging. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to put your prices up to $250 a day. And 1 in 5 people are going to start saying no, and that's okay. So now you got Fridays free. And you're going to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You're making the same amount of money, but now you can create more content. And now because you create more content, people want your services more. Okay, now you want your services more. You've now filled that 5th day. What are we going to do now? Well, we're going to put our prices up again. And we're going to keep this ebbs and flows of this until we're charging more money. We're working the same amount for more money and eventually less than we ever were. And we've got time to make content to continually top up the top of our sales funnel, which is collating audience. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think that's huge for new dog trainers to learn. It's like, raise your prices, buy back some time, use that time for more marketing, and it's just a dance. You're constantly reassessing. Like our company just raised prices by like 10%,
Just great.
And it's great. And we're fuller than ever, which maybe we should raise prices again, according to the metrics.
You should, yeah, definitely.
And LA prices are not that friendly, so it's cool. It is cool to be in the machine and see, I've done the facility thing since I was a kid. I grew up in a dog training facility and working at a dog training facility with a kennel and a staff of 20 to 25 people. And then 17 years later, I come back and that's what I have, and it's interesting to be on the business side now and to be responsible for the marketing and to be responsible for the content creation. It's funny because and tell me if you have any advice for me on this. Like, I'm fine being in front of camera and I'm fine talking and educating, but does it ever get weird that Jacob is the brand of Yorkshire Canine Academy? Or do you ever have a dream of like maybe your other trainers would get on Yorkshire and like their faces would be recognized and like everyone gets recognition? Because I personally have a problem where it's like, I hate that it's the Brent show.
Yeah.
I hate it. Like, how do you feel about that with Yorkshire?
So it's a danger with business, because it's going to limit scalability. It's going to not allow me probably to sell the business ever, without selling myself as well. In terms of deliverability, there might be issues that come up there. there's an efficiency thing there because it's part of our model, creating content. It's just I am best equipped to fulfill that role. So it's not like, oh, hey, I'm some sort of narcissist, which I get called all the time in Instagram comments. It's like, this is just the quickest, this is the path of least resistance if I just do it and churn it out, because if I've got a couple of years under my belt of doing it now. I do have my business partner that does the podcast with us, though, which is a good incubator. And then just yesterday, I want to start doing like case studies with the team involved for the same reasons you're talking about. But my job at the moment is just to create that nice big wide net to start creating brand awareness. And you're totally right in that it's not like I have a problem with it that it's the Jacob show. Like I don't really care, and I don't go to bed thinking about it. But I do have a problem with it from a business point of view.
Yeah. I'd like to, because the company is not called Jacob Canine Academy. You know what I mean? So there's this, I don't know. I also have this drive to just put people on, like, okay, you go up now, you go up. So anyways, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that, man. And my brain can go so many different directions. Mariano, you had any particular questions?
Yeah. So Jacob, you had talked about the amount of schooling that you've done prior to shifting into dog training. I'd love to learn a bit about what skills you've learned as a student, as a high-level student, that have transferred not necessarily to hands-on one-on-one dog training, but to scalability, to managing a staff, to planning a vision for the future of the brand. What skills do you think have aided that?
So it's a funny one because I went to like a red brick uni, which is like one of the top universities in the UK, and where I'm placed with, I come from like a normal school. Like we weren't rich growing up. I just come from like a regular state school, and I got myself into a really good university. And then I'm suddenly exposed to like people that are from a different class to me. So understanding that in terms of these are upper class people or middle upper class people, and they're just super posh. And then navigating that socially was something that was worth, working on and having conversations and making conversations bespoke depending on like who we're talking to. So if I've got a dog training session with a guy and he's a builder and, he comes from a similar background to me, I can maybe drop in an F-bomb and we can make a joke. And, that conversation is very different to when someone rocks up in a Bentley and, they're very different, just type of person. They're from a different background. They're used to having different conversations. This is nothing but that. Then that conversation needs to look different, and navigating through those different dialects is, I think, a super important skill when we are trying to coach the lay person, because everyone's got a dog. Everyone's got a dog, from our bus driver to prime minister, right? And everyone in between. So probably the skill in that, communicating from people that are just from different backgrounds to what I was used to. Because of my school, because we all go from school and then I moved like 4 hours away to university, we're all from the same background. We all live within 2 minutes of each other. We're all exposed to the same things. And you actually start then realizing, there's a wider world out here. There's nothing in my... I think about this quite a lot. I don't think there's anything actually within my academia that I thought, oh man, I'm so glad I did that. I hate to say it, but the social skills around university, and by all means, like, I'm not the best manager. I never signed up to be a manager. I just started a dog training business, then it started doing well, and then suddenly I found myself managing people. So on the flip side of that, then I'm also exposed to like a rugby team of like 30 lads that are high testosterone, effing and jeffing and blinding and, fucking doing all sorts of weird stuff in the showers. I don't know if you've heard about the rugby culture here in the UK.
No, tell us about the rugby culture.
No, that's a different episode. We thought football players were bad.
No, they're weird over here, man.
I saw this thing. I'm a huge fan of what Top Gear used to be, Jeremy, Richard, and James.
Yeah.
And Jeremy said something one time that I thought was hilarious. He was talking about rugby, and he'll often poke fun at Americans. And he looked dead at the camera, was talking about rugby, and he goes, for those of you watching in America, rugby's a bit like American football, except it's played by men. And then just continues right on. It was hilarious.
Nice.
Sorry, continue.
That's a good accent. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, that was good.
It was good. It wasn't good.
That's that podcast voice again.
Yeah, that's right. Where were we? So nothing you learned at school.
There probably is, mate, but there's a lot of resent there, so.
Yeah.
The resent is I'm still paying off my loans.
You can never get that back.
Let me just kind of ask you this. I do think that answer is perfectly sufficient. I mean, you're totally right. University, part of it is you're exposed to different types of people. That's part of why people go. That's part of how they sell it, is it's such an experience and so on, right? That being said, one thing that I just noticed people who have done a bit more schooling have as a skill set, only it seems so foundational. Nobody quantifies it as a skill set. The art of taking notes daily for years. Because a lot of dog trainers, we talk things like seminars and podcasts and just lesson plans and so on. So many dog trainers on average don't even know how or understand the value of taking proper notes and stuff like that. So I think that there are very basic foundational skills that people learn in higher levels of academia that make them more effective, either as trainers, as online brands, as bosses, you name it.
Yeah, you're totally right. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I was the best student in the world. I did the bare minimum to go ahead and pass. But then when I shifted that focus onto dog training, I'd be pretty confident in saying I would have been one of the best students in the world because I was obsessed. I was then seriously taking notes in my spare time, going to bed every single night, listening to a podcast, watching as many videos as I possibly can, scouring the internet, trying to go through the good, the bad, and ugly. And at that time, I didn't even know what was the good, the bad, and ugly. And so it was like the skills that I did perhaps learn in university were amplified when passion then was added into the paradigm.
What about some of the skills that you've learned as a rugby player?
Okay, so...
Oh, yeah, that's when he was talking about the locker rooms. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, flexibility.
Yeah. Long-term
Physical
dexterity.
or mental flex?
Well, the sport in which I played, rugby league, is very popular here in the north of England, and it's very popular in Australia. I actually lived there for a year because I signed for a team out there. I was in 2013, so 12 years ago now, which seems insane. Very high octane, very, very physical. Don't have pads like you pussies over there, so I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We'll take it.
And so, coping with adrenaline might just be one, but maybe dealing with conflict when you go on tour with a team of 25 guys that are from the age of 18 to 28 years old, and they're full of testosterone and they're away from their girlfriends, and tempers can flare. There can be, you're locked in a hotel for 4 weeks. Maybe that's where all the weird stuff comes from. You're locked in a hotel for 4 weeks on end. Again, it's probably social skills again, making sure that we're having the right conversations, we're diffusing situations. I remember I went away with Great Britain universities. So they take all the universities in the UK and they make a team out of the players. And I went away and I was fortunate enough to captain that team. But there's all these guys that have been rivaling with each other for the whole year and are now suddenly thrown into one team and being able to navigate that. And I was almost sometimes an agony aunt, but very much a mediator between conflict that would be arising left, right, and center from the flight that we left for Australia all the way to things that go on the pitch and beyond. So that's certainly something I'm exceptionally grateful for is rugby. And I'm talking about it like I had this great career when my business partner, actually, he had 10 years with the biggest team in the UK and won every major trophy you could possibly win. So I need to give him credit there. So it's like Manchester United had their golden era, right? Well, Leeds Rhinos also had their golden era. Like Manchester United when David Beckham was playing and things like that. Well, Leeds Rhinos had the same, and he was very much in that area. So I was playing for chump change compared to what he was doing. So I won't be give it all the big one and say, oh, is this great rugby player? That's him, not me.
Cool, man. I ask because we're starting to notice, and I know you are too, we're starting to notice this trend that as professional dog training becomes more popular, people are coming from different walks of life. You were studying in law and semi-professional rugby and then move over to dog training. We've interviewed people who had careers in marketing, which we know are pretty high-paying stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from the background of professional sports, I do find that a lot of people have a really strong leg up when it comes to training dogs hands-on, as well as when it comes to coaching a client hands-on, because essentially how to coach. It's not all just the analytical teacher side, do these things in this order. It's how hard can I push you? How do I recognize how hard can I push you? What am I basing this on? How do I learn how to share when wins with you? How do I learn how to console losses for you? And I guess I just wanted to hear a little bit about if some of that's translated over to your more direct dog training or building of a team.
Yeah, so obviously there's a dexterity element, there's a coordination element. I was actually a qualified level 2 coach as well in rugby. I've got a couple of different coaching qualifications. I was coaching kids in school with the team I was playing for at the time. So they'll send people out into the community and to go and help in schools, especially with the certain like more deprived areas and things like that. So you've got to get called up to do that. There's a little bit of extra cash on the side. And that was definitely an eye-opener. As I can tell you now, it's a lot easier to manage a classroom full of dogs and owners than it is a bunch of 8-year-olds that, you know, they want to spit on you and things.
No.
Yeah, so that was good exposure. Like, I'm also very grateful for that. And of course, like, there's a coordination thing. We've all had the client that can't walk in a straight line, right? Just to that cone. No, other cone, other rights, just your other rights.
No, other left. Yeah, other left.
And I think there's also a large element of patience there too. I'm not the most patient person in the world. And it's something like I have worked on and I'm going to continue to work on, but in the sense that I want everything to happen really quick and now, and I'm sure I drive all my colleagues crazy, but that's something I've really worked on when it comes to delivering my sessions as well. So much so that people often say like, oh, I can't believe you didn't lose your shit there when you told that person to stop putting their hand in the pocket for the 15th time within 2 minutes, right?
You're like, I was thinking it. I just didn't come out of my mouth. Yeah. I wanted to ask you a quick question, actually a brainstorm for all of us before we go on commercial break. So, everyone knows at this time, we all know the predatory sequence, right? Like the search, stalk, chase, right? So, I'm over here explaining this to dogs all the time. And for years, I love dog training because there are certain human drives, right, that are checked for me, right? I love to perform. I love to learn shit. I love to help people. I don't know what the human list would look like or like what it is. Like some people like to build stuff. Some people like to help. Some people, you know what I mean? Well, I guess my question for the group would be like, and start with you, Jacob, is like, for me, I'm a dog trainer because it checks a lot of boxes. What box does dog training check for you? Like what boxes do they check?
So maybe there's a charitable element, and I'm not going to act like a Mother Teresa here, but like I said, I do have a true affinity for dogs. I fucking adore dogs. And I think good training, the good metric in which we should be aiming for when we're training a dog is, are we improving the quality of the dog's life? And so when I see that gives me a crazy dopamine hit. When I get that text from the owner and say, hey, we just took our cockapoo Mariano to the beach and he had the best time ever playing in the sand. I'm like, that's awesome. Building is definitely one. So I was the type of kid that would build a Lego and then smash it and start again. I'd build the Lego and be like, oh, well, that sucks. And then just throw it on the floor and then literally just start it again. And building this place with Kirky has been like so much fun. I don't know what the end goal is. I hope there isn't one. But so, like, as far as this studio we're in right now, we built it. It's a whole stable. We boarded up all the sides. We put everything together. We painted it. This was filled with, like, on my mailing list, I tell a funny story about Kung Fu fighting wasps. So I got a slight tangent here, but it'll be worth it. So we open up this place. We had like a big gazebo outside, right? And we have a storm one day and it blows down and it blows all the way into the village. And it cost us like $2,000. And that was so much money for us, like just starting this business. So we were like, shit. But there was a whole stable on site, but it was just filled with like these oil drums filled with wasp nests, right? So we're like, right, that has weathered the storm. Should we build like a console area in there, which has now become our studio? But so we ripped down like the doors. We put up these roller doors in which I'm looking at now. And we're like, right, we've got to get these oil drums out. So we start like lifting off the lids and there's like blankets or something in there. So I don't know what's gone on here before we moved in, but we're lifting these like blankets, which are just filled with wasps with these big sticks. And they're flying everywhere, but they're getting into our clothes and then stinging us like multiple times, like into our clothes and like getting up our shorts and stuff. So we're like, right, we're stripping off because at least then they can just get one sting and then they can move on. because for every wasp, we were just getting multiple stings. So we're both like stung all over. So we're like, well, we're going to do this. So we put sunglasses on each. And then we went into our boxes and like just rolled them up so no wasps can get in. And they were like bouncing off us instead, right? So we're both there with sticks and sunglasses opening. Now, bear in mind, there's just a main road out here, like with people passing by. And there's a Tour de France replica in Yorkshire called the Tour de Yorkshire, right? So it's a cycle route. Anyway, fast forward, we're there both bollock naked to a degree, and then we're fighting off these wasps like this, and it looks like we're in a Steven Seagal movie. and a horde of like 50 cyclists away, 50 cyclists just pass us, and we checked later, they were far enough away to not see any wasps. So all they've gone is like driven past this dog training center, the Yorkshire Canine Academy just opened, and there's these two blokes on the Astro doing Krav Maga in their pants with like a stick each. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was it was a good one.
You were correct. That story was totally worth it.
Yeah, it was. That's great.
Just the visuals.
If you ever get me on for a second episode, ask me to tell you the Rice Krispie story. That's
Okay.
good.
All right, we'll have to plan that one out.
Well, you're coming to California pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I certainly am. Yeah, in
We'll have
July.
to pin you down and learn the Rice Krispie story.
There you go.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back, and actually let's jump into kind of what some upcoming projects look like. Cool?
Sweet. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to Dog Trainers Podcast. You know what's a great way to support this podcast? By becoming a sponsor today. With sponsoring the podcast, you'll be helping us make this show the best it can be, and so much more. From hosting more local events, traveling throughout the country, and connecting with trainers from around the world. Ultimately getting you, the listener, more of the content that you love. For more information, please contact us at dogtrainerspodcast@gmail.com or visit our Instagram page at dogtrainerspodcast. Thank you guys, and now back to the show.
Hey, everybody, welcome back, and thank you again so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Now, just before we went on break, man, we were hearing a quite special story from Jacob that I'm sure we'll want to hear again. Yeah, what was it? The Kung Fu Wasp fighting?
Kung Fu Fighting Wasp, yeah.
That needs to be like a little animated short. We need to get somebody on that and make that real.
Nice, yeah.
But we wanted to come back and pivot a little bit. So we've talked about some of the skills that you had prior to being a dog trainer, how some of those may have had some carryover into not only training dogs and building businesses, but understanding how to build an online presence and a brand. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, now that you have an online presence and you have a big following, what are some ways in which you keep them engaged?
So I guess you've got to evolve. You have to understand the market, what people are looking for. And when I say trends, I don't mean going and following and mimicking or iterating trends in that, using certain sounds and trending sounds and things like that, in terms of what sort of content are people going to like to consume. So there was a myth that, Instagram algorithm, like it has a predetermined idea of what sort of content it wants to see. And that's not the case at all. People have a predetermined idea of what content they want to see. And then Instagram then serves the people. Like Instagram doesn't decide what people want. People decide what needs to be on Instagram. And so that's constantly ever evolving and making sure that we're putting content out there that is mixing things up. So the talking head stuff I used to do with this like similar format to this and talk about various stuff, like that had its wave. It did really well, but then it started dying off and I started seeing other trends. And there's obviously a lot of platforms in various industries. They have a big spike, but then they don't evolve. They don't change with things. And then they become irrelevant. So they might gain, 50,000 followers in the space of 6 months. And then because they don't adapt, they don't change what they were doing and what collated that following not working anymore. And then they stay rigid. So we've got to be kind of understanding a little bit of market research in what people are enjoying at the moment and understanding, what ticks, what doesn't. We're very lucky that we've got the data in front of us. Like Instagram gives that to us. Interestingly, I did some maths on it the other day, but something like 90% of my followers have come from about 15% of my posts. So everyone thinks like, and this is for a lot of creators as well that have slightly bigger followings. Everyone thinks like, oh, you're going to get, you post every single day and you get 100, 200 followers per post, but it's actually a lot smaller percentage. It counts for a majority percentage of where the followers actually come from. And once you start understanding that and then iterating the stuff that's kind of working, that's how we can start really making the wheel turn and making sure that we're serving a new audience, serving the old audience. And like I've said before, mixing up the wide and narrow type of content to make sure that everyone's getting served. For me, Instagram isn't really an education platform anymore, and treating it as such is probably going to undermine your message. And so Instagram, I see it as the net to collate the audience, bringing them in with entertaining, sometimes educational, sometimes inspirational content. And then I convert them over to longer form content to then reiterate, hey, look, we actually know what we're on about. And then I funnel people into a mailing sequence that the first email says, hey, we don't just make funny videos. Look at all this other stuff we've done. So hopefully people are like, oh, actually, these guys are not just, content creators. They can be somewhat of an authority in the industry too.
So when you do the longer form, are we talking YouTube now?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we've had a big shift towards YouTube that we're going to continually push as well. More so because of the leads, 50% more likely to show up to calls. They're 50% more likely to convert off calls. They are 50% more likely to pay a deposit within 24 hours after the call. So they're much higher quality. And I guess that's only down to that like, know, and trust factor that you're going to struggle getting in a shorter period of time via short form content, e.g. a 90-second reel every day for 30 days, and they're not even going to see 30 of them. But they watch one YouTube video, they can consume the same amount of content within a 15-minute session. And then if they go in on a bit of a playlist, so we build playlists inside our YouTube to create like what we call binge sessions to make sure like, hey, if you've enjoyed that video and you need this and you've got this problem that needs solving, hey, go and watch this video. And then very quickly, someone that just discovered you can...
Not binging you.
Yeah, they can be exposed to like 3 hours of your content within the day they discovered you. That doesn't happen on Instagram. So I see it as that. It's casting out a net and then ideally pushing people into lead magnets and then long form content to create that incubation.
You said that you do mentorship currently, and I know that you do a podcast as well. Have you done maybe like a lecture that someone can purchase or an episode specifically on what your guys' funnel system looks like?
Yeah, so if you go to my Instagram page and you reply on any post or you DM me the word Rhino, RHINO, I've got a mini presentation that's like 40 minutes long that talks through how our current sales process works, and we'll send that to you for free. You got to put your email in, and then I will try and sell you into one of my events or mentorship. Full transparency. That's why we're here. So I can't it's like Inception in that I'm telling you how to do it whilst you're in it. In terms of the funnel, so I've got to be like and even when I do my sales call for my mentorship, I'm like, I got to do this sales call differently because I'm going to tell you how to do a really good sales call, but then you're going to think ill of me because if I've so I've got to do it.
I actually think that's a really smart metric because everybody's got to make a buck. And I think that you can filter out people that perhaps are a bit unreasonable. If they're like, what? You're not just going to give me all this information that you've gathered over years for free?
Yeah.
So I guess I was asking because whenever people have this information, this knowledge that I do not possess, you can look at my Instagram and be like, oh yeah, this sucks. I think it's very valuable. I know obviously, but I mean very valuable in that just as many dog trainers need to understand the value of taking sabbaticals, of improving their training ability, of learning how to like coach and manage teams and all that stuff, how to build a brand, like have a plan for what it's going to look like and why. I also think it's just as valuable, if not possibly more so, because everybody's got to make money, to know how to create this funnel and this online presence. So I'm gonna go sign up for that free video, and then you send me whatever marketing materials you want. I'm down. I'm in.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
sign up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I double that. I'll do the same.
Well, with that being said, what's next for YCA?
There's a couple of things. So I've got a board next to my bed, and there's a couple of different things pinned on there. I won't tell you about them all, but they're things I want to tick off this year. There's some business stuff. There's some personal stuff.
Some rugby players.
No, I'm
Some
over that.
rugby player.
You and your sneaky trips to Ireland. You love those rugby boys. They're national sport, you know, Mariano.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
It'd be funny if it was. So there's a couple of bits and bobs on there. The ones for YCA is, we're doing a couple of seminars. We're doing one at Michael's school, and then I'm doing a reactivity one in a place called Concord. And then we're going over to Sydney in Australia to Pat Stewart's school. And I really want them, I've already started planning for them. I really want them to bring something to the industry, especially the business side. So I'm doing 2 seminars in each one. One is dog training. It's like a reactivity seminar. And one is called the Business Blueprint, where I'm going to just give everything I've learned to people in the last couple of years. And yeah, that Business Blueprint especially, I want it to be something that is new to the industry. And I want to try and help others kind of shift how their mindset works when it comes to training dogs. I see so many amazing dog trainers, and furthermore, amazing people that aren't kind of probably reaping the rewards they probably deserve, just down to their priorities are so focused in one direction. And like I've said to you guys before, like our main priority, regardless of marketing, regardless of sales, regardless of creating content, needs to be, hey, be good with the dogs, be good at your trade. That is the first thing that I put on my action list for my mentees, and it is the middle thing. So it's point 1, it's point 15, and it's point 30. It's get good, get better, get even better, right? But there's points in between there what we also need to work on, because if you can be the best dog trainer in the world, but if you've got no money or you've got no dogs to train, it doesn't account for anything. So yeah, the stuff I want to deliver in those seminars, I want to really just try and help people shift their paradigm and make sure they have a more balanced approach when it comes to understanding their work life, to make sure it's sustainable, make sure they're avoiding burnout, make sure that they're looking after themselves and those around them, and they can, keep contributing to the industry, because if they haven't got that financial burden over their head.
Yeah, sure. So you were mentioning those things, the burnout and all of that. What do you think are the contributing factors? Like, what are the problems that you are trying to solve? Or trying to help people solve?
So we know it's an emotional job, and we can work with a client, and they might have to be at certain crossroads at a certain point, or whatever. It comes with its baggage, and then you amplify that by working with multiple clients. But what I see a lot of dog trainers do is they get good, they get busy, they get full, and this is almost the trap I kind of fell into. Is we get busy, we get good, we get full, and instead of increasing those prices, freeing up the calendar, what do? We go and hire someone else. And we hire someone else. And then we get doubly full. And we're on the same price, and then we might hire someone else. But then person A might leave. The first person we hired might leave. And then we got to train them up. And then us and person B are sharing the workload. We're then bringing someone else in, which then puts pressure on all of us. It puts financial pressure on us. And then that cycle, we have like this 1 step forward, 2 step back, because of dog training industry. I did it. People come, they learn, and then they go, right, I'm going to fly the nest and I'm going to go and do my own thing. It's perfectly natural. But for me as a business owner, I shifted from that model because of there's just that pattern of people come, they learn, they mentor under you for 6 months, 12 months or whatever, and then they go and do their own thing. And that is absolutely fine. What can I say? I did the same thing. But for me as a business owner, right, we've got someone trained up, great, they're bringing passive income for me. They do that for a year. They might do it for 18 months. They might do it for 2 years. They might do it for longer, but then they leave, and then they create a vacuum that we need to then fill. And then whilst my focus is on training a new person or finding a new person and then maybe serving the clients that they left behind, well, the business is going to suffer, the marketing is going to suffer, the content is going to suffer. Where I think if people are just really savvy, they put their prices up, buy themselves more time, and then kind of scale that way. You know, we do really good numbers here. We've only got 3 trainers, myself being one. Our content creation team or our admin team, essentially is bigger than our dog training team, but that's okay because we're able to charge more per hour because of that's how we've scaled things. That means less risk for me. It means less risk. You know, if we don't have a good month, I don't have these giant overheads. Our overheads are nice and low, and that's just how I would promote younger trainers that were in this. There's no right or wrong. There's pros and cons, but I just want to get across to people, hey, there's other options than having these giant schools with lots of, like you said for yourself, Brent, with lots of overheads, lots of staff, managing lots of staff. People will inevitably be coming in, coming out, lots of dogs passing through, lots of dog traffic. We can mitigate those risks. And again, there are pros to it, of course, as well. But we can then kind of maybe start thinking about it in a different direction if we don't want to be putting ourselves under that sort of added pressure. Because I don't think it's for everyone to have that amount of pressure that you perhaps have, right? I'm sure there's been many nights where you've been up at night thinking, what am I going to do with X person? What am I going to do if we don't meet this target? Or if your water's cut off and all the rest of it. And so...
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, I got to be, for people listening, there's entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and solopreneurs, right? And then you have these different terms, and my mentor allowed me to be an intrapreneur within my own company, or within his company, sorry. Okay. So I got to run, in essence, my own business, but under his shield, under his umbrella. And it literally got to the point in 4 or 5 years, people were like, do you own this business? And I'm like, no, but I'm going to run it like it's my business. And I've been really, I'm very proud of my team because they have kind of taken in those footsteps, and so yes, it is, I guess I'm saying all this, there is a lot of stress, and there were many times where I was like, is this what I fucking want to do? Do I really want to try and mimic this and create these entrepreneurs within my company? Do I really want to create this big entity? And you're right, it's not for everybody, and it has its ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it's what's your goal? What is your goal? Is your goal the financial stuff? Is your goal work-life balance? Is your goal do you have a bigger mission, bigger than yourself? Like, what is it? And for me, so far the juice is worth the squeeze. You know what I mean? And pretty excited about it. But I want to go to these seminars. I'm going to definitely be at the one in Michael Ellis's school.
Yeah, I'd like to go too.
Yeah, let's go hang out, and we can have a beer and talk about how
that'd be amazing.
Bought all of this. But no, we'd love to see you. And actually, the reason we reached out to you, I haven't mentioned it on this episode, is we were talking to Michael Ellis. And we were telling him about our season 4, goals for the podcast. And it's about business development and professional development, working with clients, creating leads and things like that. And he just goes, that guy, Jacob, Yorkshire Canine Academy. And I was like, Jacob, that's his name? Oh, wow, that's crazy. And he goes, yeah, you guys should hit him up because he's coming out here in the summertime, and he's going to come do a seminar for us. And we're really excited to have him out here. And I was like, no shit. So we reached out to you literally the next day. And here we are, guys, finally having a podcast with Jacob.
Yeah, third time lucky, but.
So yeah, third time is a charm. But yeah, I definitely want to be there. Wait, what are the dates? So like in Australia, in some of these other seminars, would you mind giving us like the dates and kind of the information
this isn't my forte, but let's have a little look. I should know these off by heart, right? Right, we got July, we're going to California, and I want to say the 12th and 13th is, nope, there you go, there we are. 14th to 17th is the reactivity seminar in Concord, and then I got 2-day seminar 19th and 20th at Michael Ellis School. That July is 19th. The July 19th and 20th is the business blueprint.
Where's Concord? Concord, California?
Yeah, it's like an hour from Michael's.
Where the hell is Concord?
Concord's Northern Cal.
Okay, got it. And you got to make time to come to LA if you're going to be in California, my friend.
Yeah, I will do for sure. And then 13th and 14th is the business blueprint in Sydney, Australia. And then the 20th and 21st, I got a dog training reactivity seminar as well.
Wait, that's all in July.
Sorry, that's September. Australia is
Okay.
September.
Okay, you scared me. I was like, how are you going to fly from here to there and this and there and there? Cool. Well, that's exciting. All right, so Concord, there's a leash reactivity seminar, and then Michael Ellis after that. And where can people buy these tickets? They just go to your website?
Yeah, there's our website link in our bio, or if you're interested in the California tickets, just comment, DM, or reply Eagle to anything. And then the same for Australia, comment, DM, or reply Bogan. So if you're interested in US seminars, Eagle, Australia seminars, Bogan, Bogan. And my little robot will send you over all the details.
Cool, man. I mean, I had a great time getting to know you, Jacob, over these last 3 attempts of
Yeah,
this.
I know.
And I look forward to getting to know you a little bit more. Mariano, do you have any last couple questions?
No, thank you very much, Jacob. This has been fun. It's been a blast. Looking forward to seeing you in California. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Loved it. Cheers.
So, yeah, again, we just want to thank our good buddy, Jacob Morgan from Yorkshire Canine Academy. My name is Brent LaBrada. That guy's Mariano Alvarez. And thank you again, Jacob. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope that you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to be back with you guys. Be sure to follow us at Dog Trainers Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to punch the hell out of that subscribe button and leave us a review.
Remember, guys, this is your podcast. You're the best listeners in the world, and we'll see you next time.